Okay, here is our notes on the substitution method for solving systems of equations. It says a method for solving system of equations by substituting an equation within each other. Basically what we're going to do is either solve for x or y and then substitute it into the other equation and solve it for a letter. And once you have that answer, you'll substitute it back into the other equation and solve for the other letter. Okay, so it's like if I take number 1, notice it's already solved for y on the first one. So I'm going to take this one and plug it into that spot right there, which means I'm going to have 2x plus 3, and instead of writing the y, I'm going to put in parentheses, put the 6x there, and it equals negative 20. So that you can see that I got rid of the y, because I had to replace it into the other equation. So now I can multiply this, and it will be 2x plus 18x is equal to negative 20. So when I add this, I'll get 20x is equal to negative 20. To get x by itself, I'll divide by 20. Those cancel out, and x is equal to a negative 1. So I have found the x value of my answer. But now I have to substitute my answer back into the other equation. So I'm going to go back to this first one here, and that's where I'm going to bring it back, where I have y equals 6x. I brought it over here. I'm going to replace the x with a negative 6 now. I'm negative 1. I do multiply it, so here's where I get that the y is going to be negative 6. I put the two things together, and I'll have my solution of negative 1, negative 6. And that is my intersection point for my lines. Okay, if I go to number 2, I'm going to notice that the first equation is solved for y already. So I'm going to take this expression, and I'm plug it in for the y right there where the 8y is located. So this starts out being just 3x plus, and then I have an 8, and then I'm going to put the y in parentheses, and what I replace the y with is the x plus 9. That's the substitution that's taking place, and it equals negative 5. Alright, I'm going to distribute the 8 into my parentheses. That way I get 3x plus 8x plus 72 is equal to negative 5. Okay, that gives me 11x's now, plus 72 is equal to negative 5. I'm going to subtract 72. I have 11x is equal to negative 77. If I divide by the 11, that gives me x is equal to negative 7. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to plug it back into my equation. The first one is the easiest, where I have x plus 9. I'm going to insert the x into that position. So I'll have y equals negative 7 plus 9, which means y is equal to a 2. There's my other letter. If I put them together now, I have negative 7 and 2 is my solution. If I look at number 3, the first equation is already solved for x this time, so I'm going to place it in for the x on the second equation. So I'm going to have a 2, and then I've got to put a parentheses because I got to replace it with the entire expression, 4y plus 7, and then I need to copy the rest of the problem. Minus 6y is equal to 12. I'm going to distribute the 2 into my parentheses, so I'll have 8y plus 14, and then minus the 6y is equal to the 12. I have common terms of the 8 minus the 6 y's, which will give you 2y plus 14 is equal to 12. I want to subtract the constant, so I'm subtracting the 14, and that gives you 2y is equal to negative 2. And then I divide by 2. That tells me the y is -1. So I want to go back and plug it into one of my equations. I'm going to take the first one again. It says x is equal to 4y plus 7. Well, there's my y value. I'm going to plug it in and have 4 times a -1 plus 7. That means x is equal to a 3. Now when I write my solution, I need to make sure I put my x before my y. So that'll be a 3, -1 as my solution. Alright, on number 4, I notice that neither one of my equations is solved for a letter. But if I look at my second one, I notice this one has a y that does not have a coefficient. So I can real easily solve this problem for y by just moving the 2x to the other side. So I'm going to take this equation and I'm going to subtract the 2x so that I will have y is equal to -2x plus 9, and I'm going to use this equation. I'm going to plug it into the first equation up here. So I'm looking for the y's. That's where my new expression is going to be inserted. So I'm going to start with a 2x minus 3, and then here's my substitution. I always put in parentheses. I'm going to substitute the -2x plus 9, and it has to equal -11. Now when I multiply this, I got to be careful because this is actually a -3 that I'm distributing. I'm going to be multiplying into my parentheses. So I've got the 2x, -3 times a -2 is a positive 6x, and then -3 times 9 is a -27. If I combine my x's, 2 plus 6 is 8. I need to move my constant, so I'm going to add 27. It gives you 8x is equal to, I think that's 16. Make sure. Yep. I want to divide by 8, and that tells me x is equal to a 2. Now I'm going to take this 2 and I'm going to plug it into either one of my equations. Doesn't matter which. I'm just going to take the first one. Does not matter. That has 2x minus 3y is equal to -11. So this is going in for my x. So that means I'm going to have 2 times 2 minus 3y is equal to -11. That means I have 4 minus 3y is equal to -11. I'm going to subtract the 4. That gives me -3y is equal to -15. Now I have to divide by -3. That tells me y is equal to 5. Alright, I squeezed that in, but that means my solution is 2, 5. Now realize I could have taken that and plugged it in right there and probably got my answer a whole lot faster. Alright, next page. Got several examples here doing the same pattern. I gotta look at which equation I can solve solve for a letter the easiest. I see the first equation, I have a y by itself. So that means I'm going to take the 2x and move it to the other side to get my new equation. So if I write that right below here, I'm going to subtract the 2x, and that gives you y is equal to, and I'm going to have -2x minus 2 is my new equation for this first one. Well, that means I've got to take this now and plug it in for the y right there. So this new equation is going to be 5x plus 3, and this is where I substitute. The y is going to be this negative 2x minus 2, and it still equals negative 8. I want to distribute into my parentheses. That gives you 5x minus 6x minus 6 is equal to negative 8. If I combine my x's, I get negative 1x. And now I want to move my constant. That gives you negative 1x is equal to negative 2. If I divide by the negative 1, that means x is equal to a positive 2. Okay, I'm going to take it and plug it into this modified equation here, so that it has y is equal to negative 2x minus 2. The x is being replaced right there. So that means I have negative 2 times 2 minus 2. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, and negative 4 and a negative 2 is a negative 6. So my solution is 2, negative 6. Alright, on 6, I notice this has an x by itself, so that means I need to move the y to the other side. So this is the one I'm going to modify. I'm going to rewrite it right here below. And I want to subtract the 5y this time, so that I will have x is equal to negative 5y plus 4. And this is my new equation. I'm going to substitute it into my second equation right here where the x is. So this one changes to 3, and this is where I need my parentheses because of the x. It says the x is equal to negative 5y plus 4. And now I need to write the rest of my equation, so I have plus 15y is equal to negative 1. I want to distribute, so this changes to negative 15y plus 12 plus 15y equals negative 1. Here my y's are separated by a constant, and if I combine my y's, negative 15 plus 15 is 0. So when I get a 0 value, that means that cancels out, and I'm left with this question, is 12 equal to negative 11? Is 12 equal to negative 1? That's a false statement. So that means this is a no solution. Okay, it's a no solution is your answer. So over here in the blank, I'm going to put the no solution symbol. Since these do not equal, this is a false statement. If I look at number 7, the first equation is solved for y, so I'm just going to place it right there in my equation. So that when I change this, I'm going to put a 1 with my front x, plus, and then I have the y, which is a 4x, and then have it equal to 5. If I combine my x's, I'll have 5x is equal to 5. If I divide by 5, that means x is equal to 1. I'm going to take it and plug it back into my first equation. That was y equals 4x. The x is going to be replaced with a 1, so that means this is 4 times 1. That means y is equal to 4. So these are intersecting lines, and they intersect at 1, 4. Right there. Okay. I look at number 8. I notice the first equation is solved for the x, so it's got to go right there on my second equation for the x value. That means this translates to 3, and then this is where I substitute. Put the parentheses there because I have a 3. Write the negative 4y, and then I'm going to write the rest of my equation. Okay. I want to distribute. It gives me negative 12y plus 2y is equal to 20. When I combine like terms, this now gives me negative 10y is equal to 20. If I divide by negative 10, y is equal to negative 2. Okay, I'm going to take it, plug it back into my first equation that I had. The y is a negative 2, so this changes to negative 4 times negative 2, which means x is equal to 8. So this has a solution. Make sure you write the x first. So your solution is written in the correct order. Alright, number 9. Look at that first equation. It's solved for y. So that means it's going to go right there in that second slot. Rewriting this will be 5x plus 2. And now here's my parentheses. I'm going to insert the first equation. And it has to equal 5. We're going to distribute. It gives you 5x plus 6x plus 16 is equal to 5. Combine like terms, I now have 11x plus 16 is equal to 5. I'm going to subtract 16, and that gives me 11x is equal to negative 11. Divide by 11, and that tells me x is equal to negative 1. Alright, I'm going to take it and plug it back into my first equation. And the x is going to be replaced with a negative 11, or I'm sorry, negative 1. So it'll be 3 times a negative 1 plus 8. That means the y is 5. So the solution will be negative 1 and 5. Okay, if I look at 10, neither equation is solved for a letter, but I noticed the second one, it has a y by itself. I just need to move the 2x. So that's the one I'm going to modify, because I'm going to subtract 2x and now have my new equation of y equals negative 2x plus 18. And this is the one I'm going to take and plug into the first equation. And I'm substituting it for the y. So to rewrite my equation, I'm going to have 6x plus 3, and now replace the new equation, and it has to equal 54. So I have 6x, and then 3 times negative 2 is a negative 6x, plus 3 times 18, and that appears to be 54. If I combine my x's, 6 minus 6 is my 0x. Okay, remember as before, when I get a 0 with a term, I'm just going to cancel it out. That's gone. So I have this question, is 54 equal to 54? And that is true. That is a true statement. That means this is the identity. It means these equations are identical. And this is, for my answer, this is where we had the infinitely many. And whoops. Infinitely many, or we had that symbol that was sideways, and that's what I'm going to put in the blank over here. It's like an 8 turned sideways. Infinitely many answers. Alright, 11 looks a little different because it has two of them solved for y. So I'm going to take the first expression and plug it in right there on the left side of the second equation, so that I'll have 4x minus 1 is equal to 2x minus 5. Since I have letters on each side, I need to get them together, so I'm going to do negative 2, but that cancels, and 4 minus 2 is still 2x minus 1 is equal to negative 5. I'm going to add 1. That gives you 2x is equal to negative 4. Divide by 2. And x is equal to negative 2. I'm going to take it and plug it back into either one, does not matter which. So I'm going to just take the first one. And I'm going to replace the x with the negative 2. So this is actually 4 times negative 2 minus 1. Well, that would be negative 8 minus 1, which happens to be negative 9. So my solution is negative 2, negative 9 for number 11. Alright, in our last example, neither equation is solved for a letter, but I notice the first one, the x is all by itself except for this term, so I can move it to the other side and have it real quick. So the first equation is the one I'm going to modify. Okay, so that means I'm going to add 3y, so that I have x is equal to 3y minus 2, and this is the equation I'm going to replace into the second one for my x. So now I'm going to rewrite this. I have a 10. In my parentheses, I'm going to substitute the equation, and then I have my plus 8 is equal. I'm going to distribute the 10. That gives me 30y minus 20. Combine your y's. Notice they're separated. They're separated by the constant. So I have 38 y minus 20 is equal to negative 20. I want to add 20, and that gives me 38y is equal to 0. I'm going to divide that by 38, and that means y is equal to 0. Okay. I'm going to take that value and put it into my modified equation. 0 goes in for the y, so that means that's 3 times 0 minus 2. That means the x is just negative 2 for my answer. So the solution will be negative 2 and 0.